Hey guys, what is up? I know it's been a while. Please excuse the facial hair. I know there's a lot of it. As most of you know, I just graduated from college, so I do need a new daily driver, and we're actually on the way to pick it up. It's going to probably be a super short vlog because it's Corona situation, and I'm not going to spend too much time outside today. Just going to go pick up the car, sign the final papers, and leave. Obviously, dealership's trying to do as much as possible to try and reduce the amount of time people are spending in the dealership, so we're not going to have too much time in the dealership to actually check out the car. We're going to go pick it up. The deal's been closed. Everything's been signed. I just need to go and, sign the final paperwork for the bank loans and all that good stuff, and then we can pick up the car and head back. I don't know if I've included in the title. In case I haven't, I'm going to keep it a surprise, but we're about 5 minutes from the dealership. I'm super excited, so let's go check out my new daily driver. Oh yeah, and before I forget to mention this, nobody knows about this car. My cousin's with me on the way to get the car. And then I think one or two of my friends may have known because I just told them because they were bored and I just let them know. But basically none of my friends know, my parents don't know, no one has any idea that I'm about to go get this car. And this is gonna be my first financial, big financial move. I'm gonna go through the car, why I picked this specific car, obviously, and then also a little bit about who I am. So if you are a first-time car buyer, and this is gonna be in another video, but if you are a first-time car buyer or if you're thinking about getting a car, maybe outline the pros and cons of why I decided to get a car now, the benefits of doing so, and all that good stuff. Remember, I needed something cheap, reliable, easy to use, and something that I could just drive to and from work with no issues, and it wasn't going to cost me too much in maintenance or too much in running expenses. And well, here's the car I ended up with somehow. I don't know how this happened, but yeah, that's the new Porsche Cayenne. It's a Cayenne GTS. It's got the V8. It just sounds insane. I drove a bunch of Mercedes GLs and a bunch of like Mercedes MLs, Audis, and Range Rovers, and those would have definitely been the logical choice. But at the same time, I drove this car, and I think it's got a resonator delete as well. We'll obviously hear it on the highway, and have a cold start and all that stuff. But yeah, as an introduction, it's white on the outside. It's a great shade of white. Let me try and adjust the lighting. And on the inside, it's black, and it's got the Alcantara wheel. Obviously, it's not the newest Cayenne. I don't know where the keys are. And we'll do a cold start in a bit. I'm gonna hit the road and start driving home. It's not the newest Cayenne, so it's taken previous owner. Hopefully, it's taken most of the hit on depreciation. So I'm also trying to get into German cars a little bit, something that's out of warranty, because I do eventually want to move into something like an R8 or Gallardo. Again, I'll go into the details of why I bought this specific car in a later video. But yeah, guys, let's hit the road. Let's start heading back home. I'll run you guys through maybe some of the features. We'll have maybe a couple montage clips of the car, the exhaust, and all that good stuff. All right, guys, I am super excited, and I can't wait to get going. All right, guys, and we are on the drive home right now. This is the first time I'm driving the car after kind of taking delivery of it. Obviously, I've driven it on the test route. So I'll do a more in-depth review of this spec and all the stuff on this car and the GTS and all that good stuff. But I thought I'd give you guys a brief insight on how it is as a first impressions, right? As soon as I took delivery of the car, how it feels and all that good stuff, and kind of my initial thoughts and impressions on the car. Now, I do have a few of those, so we'll go through those in a bit. But to start off, let's go ahead with the drivetrain, so the engine and the transmission, right? So this is the Cayenne GTS. I could have gone for the Turbo or Turbo S, which is a little bit more money, but if there's a reasoning behind why I got to the GTS, and I'll include that in a different video. But this basically got 420 horsepower. It's naturally aspirated V8. Now, this is a 2013 model. So, I needed something as a daily driver, and this kind of fit the bill for what I was looking for. So this got about 420 horsepower. Obviously, I've got the M6 for when I want to do like actual rally driving or a bit faster driving and all that good stuff. So this got like 420 horsepower. It's not crazy fast, but to get around traffic and for highway cruising, it's definitely more than enough, I'm gonna put it in sport mode right now, which is down here, kind of sharpens everything up. I'm gonna shift down a couple times. And all right, so very first thing is, I guess we got to talk about that exhaust right now. So the owner of this car, when I posted that I was going to get it, the owner's friend actually reached out to me on my Instagram and told me that he knew the previous owner of this car and gave me some insight on the exhaust. So it's actually got a secondary cat delete, which is why it sounds kind of insane. It's actually extremely loud, and I'm going to do a POV driving video, or more insight, kind of in-depth review, and I'll include more about that then. But yeah, the exhaust is definitely not stock. Going back to the engine and the transmission, right? So the engine is okay powered. It's not too crazy, but at the same time, it's not underpowered either. It feels okay. The main thing about this car, though, that does feel extremely different on daily driving is definitely that transmission compared to the M6. Now, obviously, I'm not expecting dual clutch type performance, but at the same time, you know, it's actually pretty dim-witted. It's not showing its characteristics right now, but especially under like kind of low speed city conditions, it's a little slow and it's a little confused all the time. Now obviously it's going to take some manipulating, you know, like hit the brakes. It's going to be different than a dual clutch, because dual clutch always seems to know what you want to do and they're extremely fast. But for, you know, the transmission that's in here, it's pretty slow, and I would say it feels a little outdated. As other than that though, you know, again, this is going to be a car that I'm going to be kind of daily driving, so I'm not looking for kind of the most insane driving experience. But you know, that is one thing you might want to take into consideration if you know you do want this car for its performance. All right, guys. So now the technology. Again, this is a car from 2013. It's not a 2018 or 2020 car. So the tech is from 2013. The PCM, which is what they call it, which is kind of Porsche's like center console module infotainment system. It is graphically not the best. But at the same time, you know, keep in mind, I'm not looking for something that's the most modern or futuristic of driving experiences. I know what I bought into, and it is touchscreen, so that's extremely nice. It is pretty intuitive the way it's laid out, as in the menus and all that stuff. But at the same time, you know, the graphics aren't the best, and it does look a little bit outdated. So do keep that in mind. Again, if you're looking to buy one of these, or, you know, you're looking at an older car, that is one thing you want to take into consideration, is the kind of level of tech at a point like that. Another thing, huge thing that I've noticed, and you know, I noticed this while I was test driving it as well, is that rear view mirror is tiny. Now it's not just, it doesn't just look tiny on the camera, it is actually pretty small. Keeping in mind there's a second row of seats behind me and the headrests, I can barely see anything out of that back window, which for an SUV, I didn't have any problems with the GL, ML, Audi Q7. None of those things I have problems with, but on this car, I'm finding it a little too small. Another thing that I've come to kind of notice, and I kind of noticed in other people's reviews as well, were that these Alcantara seats are kind of like, not bucket seats per se, but they're definitely pretty snug. And I'm not too, you know, heftily built. I'm pretty skinny. And I myself am finding that I'm pretty snug against the seat. And I can definitely see that, you know, if you've got a little bit of fat around maybe your midsection, you could definitely feel like you're not fitting in the seat as comfortably as you could be. And that's the seat, just for reference. You know, it seems very bolstered and you can't actually adjust it. So, you know, like there's a lot of padding around here and it feels like you're kind of getting squeezed out of it around here. So it's kind of weird. Oh, there's a cop. Yeah, radar detector's going crazy. Cops in front of me, but yeah, so that is something that you might want to keep in mind. Check the seats out if you're gonna get one, and you know, make sure you're comfortable in them. Another thing that a lot of reviewers have complaints about, you know, kind of yesteryear's Porsches, are the amount of buttons in the center console. Now, obviously, when you talk to people with Porsches, they say that it's okay to live with. When you listen to reviewers, they talk about how it's a lot of buttons. Obviously, it's going to be a learning curve. You know, as you get to live with the car, you get used to the car, you're going to learn where the buttons are, and it's going to be no problem. I'm not finding it too hard. Obviously, I know that it's going to be a bit of a learning curve to figure out where things are, and I'm okay with that, so that's not putting me off too much. As far as the suspension goes and the ride comfort, it's pretty comfortable. It doesn't feel too stiff. Obviously, I'm keeping it in normal suspension. I'm not in sport because I'm not going to be driving this car too aggressively, and you know, it bounces around a little bit. I put it in comfort for a while, and I just felt like the travel was way too much. You know, the entire car felt a little bit wobbly, but you know, put it in normal and it feels perfectly fine. Sport suspension might get a little stiff, so there's the suspension settings right there. Sport suspension might get a little bit stiff, but you know, it's not crazy stiff. I've driven in sport for a bit and it doesn't feel too crazy. I don't know if you noticed that, but the suspension, we just shifted down into like second or third gear and the entire car just stuttered. So it's not the smoothest transmission. So this is kind of for locking the different diffs, and based on if you're driving in the mountains, driving the road, you can lock the centers or the rears or whatever. Here you have the actual suspension stuff, so comfort, normal, and sport. And then here you can actually change the ride height of the car. Now I usually keep it just below the normal ride height, kind of a little bit lower, because you know, I'm where I live, the roads are pretty smooth, shouldn't have any issues clearing anything. So I put it there. You can actually put it one level lower, but that's actually technically for loading. So if you're going to load anything heavy into the car, that's what that's for. So yeah, I think the car automatically raises itself up if you're not in that. Now, another huge thing for me is there's no heads-up display in this car. Obviously, the M6, which has been my daily, had the heads-up, so I always had my speed and all that information up there. This car doesn't have that, so everything is down here. It is very clear, obviously. You know, Porsche. I'm gonna try and adjust the lighting here really quick. So Porsche obviously emphasizes the tach in the center, and then it's got the speedometer on the left, and then on the right is kind of where the heads-up display information is displayed on a Porsche. So you can actually cycle through that with this little knob right here. So I can move this knob up and down, and it'll correspondingly change that part of it. So, you know, here you got some information about the vehicle, radio information, and you can just cycle through it. So the current nav, so that matches that. So you can change it to the map or the turn-by-turn, and so on and so forth. All right, guys, so by this point, the sun set a little bit lower in the sky, so a lot more light started coming through the windshield, which completely destroyed the color saturation, and, well, this is what happened. Obviously, it's going to be kind of weird not having that information right where my eyes are looking and having to look down all the time, but other than that, you know, again, it's a learning curve, and I'm not going to be driving this car so aggressively that it's going to make a big difference that I'm going to be looking down or looking up. That's, again, not what I'm really expecting out of this car to do. So, yeah, guys, super happy with the car. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm going to be doing a little bit of, you know, I'm going to go through in much more detail why this specific car, why I added it now, why you should possibly just think about financing a car. I just got out of college, so why I went with the car that I did at the price point that I did and all that good stuff in a later video. But thanks so much for tuning in, and yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Everyone stay safe. I know it's the peak of the coronavirus situation in some places. Everyone stay safe. If you need to message me, obviously reach out to my Instagram. I'll see you guys soon.